What's up, everybody? Thanks for stopping by HireWell's YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe and click the bell to get notifications. I recently had a conversation with Debra Senra, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at TenSpot. She's an expert both in sales, also in employee engagement. We like that kind of double threat. Anyways, we've talked more about sales hiring in this conversation, and I think if you're trying to hire salespeople, or maybe you're a salesperson looking to see how senior leaders think about about the hiring process, check it out. Welcome, everyone, to the Talent Insights podcast brought to you by HireWell and CareerWell. I'm joined today by the Chief Revenue Officer at TenSpot, a company focused in employee and workforce engagement solutions. Everyone, please welcome Debra Senra.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, I like going with a really short intro because I've been a guest on a few podcasts and people like ask me for a bio or whatever, and I'm just like, I don't like it. I'm like, you know what? If you want to do a further intro, you go right ahead. So.
Right now?
Yeah, off the cuff, no planning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it. I'm the CRO of TenSpot. I spent the last 4-ish years at a recruitment software company, Series D startup in Chicago. And then before that, it's like a different world. I spent almost 10 years in the market research industry. So quite the pivot from market research to SaaS.
Yeah, no, it's it was funny because we were talking about, and I think we'll lay this up. We might do a second show someday, even though we haven't even done the first one, because we had a lot of interesting topics. And you're a sales professional, but you've also become an employee engagement expert or something, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, but I was thinking it is kind of funny because I do think that salespeople do end up like experienced salespeople who spend an amount of time in a certain industry, like they do become experts in different areas just because they may not have the science and theory background, but they're usually way better at relating things to people, you know? So I think if you want to stick around the podcast, we will have a second episode, assuming Debra doesn't hate this one, where we actually talk more about employee engagement, because I think that is also kind of relevant to our audience here. But also how we got hooked up. So I feel like we need to give Sales Assembly a shout out. I don't know.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt Green, who has a rip-off Peloton somewhere in his house, introduced us. Sales Assembly is a Chicago-based organization. It's actually dedicated towards furthering the sales profession through lots of training, through lots of networking. It's actually a great organization, and they don't have any skin in the game on this podcast per se, but they're being gracious enough to introduce myself and Debra. And you're like a celebrity there. Like we just joined like a couple months ago, and you apparently know everybody. So how long have you been when like we're talking with those guys?
About 3 years.
Okay.
So I don't even pretend to hide it. It was the first purchase I made when I moved to TenSpot. I find them that valuable. So
nice.
Back from my time in market research, I used to work for a company called CEB, which is now a part of Gartner. And for the life of me, I cannot remember the research study, but I do remember the fact, which is external networks and the size of your external network is a huge indicator for how successful you're going to be at a new company. And so if nothing else, Sales Assembly has helped with that, which is a nice tie into recruiting, because having an external network, whether you're a candidate or a hiring manager, is key to finding the right people.
Yeah. So what's funny, because dovetailing once again, there's a call. I'm on most Thursdays. I see you pop in. You're kind of big time, so I think you pop in and out because you're like a celebrity. But it's funny because there's a 45-minute call. It's a lot of this like sales leaders from all the different organizations there, and like clockwork, I would say every other week, conservatively, sales hiring comes up as like the ongoing topic, and it's like a Groundhog Day conversation. And it's not repetitive in that standpoint, but it's one of the two things. The other one being, what the hell is everyone going to do during COVID? That just keeps coming up and that everyone's struggling with. And it very much matches our experience as what we're seeing on the recruiting side. But it's also why I wanted to have this conversation, because like I have a background in recruiting, and we have one of our divisions does recruit salespeople. You're obviously a CRO, you hire lots of salespeople. So we kind of come out from two different areas. And I think that I would be curious to get your take. What do you think people are having the most hard time with that they shouldn't?
Oh, lots of stuff. I mean, the biggest mistake I hear people making when they're hiring for salespeople is, for lack of a better word, people are going to get real mad when I say this, but it's ego. It's this
Hmm.
ego that you are in a position of power and that you are picking someone who should be honored to work for you. And that's just not the market we're in right now.
Yeah.
You are a salesperson. It is one of your hardest sales jobs ever because you can't sell the dream and service the nightmare. Because otherwise you're going to be in the exact same position. You have to find a way to be really honest about what the candidate can expect. But it is a hardcore pitch to get the right people in your business right now. And I think I'm seeing a lot of people who are just unwilling to view this as us selling them, not them selling us.
And it's weird because isn't that their profession is selling, So it's like I think I see this kind of in all areas of hiring. It's like when people have their job seeker hat on, they expect a lot. They get upset when things don't go their way. They want a certain level of communication, but people always forget. But the irony here is that those same people are also on hiring teams at their own company. And if they feel so passionately about like, hey, we need to communicate better or sell better, like as when you have your candidate hat on, if those same people would just kind of take it, like start with your own company and how you're doing things. Because I do think that is a huge issue, is there's that feeling that, like you should be thankful that we're giving you an offer because we're the best company out there and everyone thinks that, so.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
when you talk to people, they say they don't do that. When you talk to people, they say, no, I pitch my business hard. And I say, okay, what from application comes in to first response, how long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't means it's too long. The first 10 minutes of the interview, we're asking them questions versus asking you. Okay, you're asking them questions. You're selling after you know you want someone. But in this market, you don't even have the opportunity to figure out if you want someone because they're not interested in talking to you until you sell them on your business. So at 10 Spot, when somebody applies, we have an automatic email that goes out from my inbox with my cell phone number at the bottom saying, we appreciate you applied. We know that it's a hard market. We wanted the actual hiring manager to reach out with my contact information if you have any questions. And if you feel like I'm taking too long to respond to you, now you know exactly who to reach out to. And
Yeah.
I get a response 70% of the time from people not saying you're taking too long, but saying this is really great. I often have 3 or 4 conversations before I even meet the hiring manager. Thank you for this hands-on approach. And I think that is table stakes right now.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know many companies doing that. So when you mentioned to me before that was one of your approaches, and it seems like a fairly simple, straightforward, automated thing you can do. And I know, it's again, it's ego. Some people don't want to be that that reachable, and let's be honest, we're all overworked. The last thing we all feel like doing is taking a few other calls. But like, I think that building your sales, like that is what's going to help you hit your goal. Like you said, it's table stakes and something you have to do. I think it kind of goes even beyond that, though. Leaders who are willing to put themselves out there are having a way easier time. I always do lots of content here, obviously, and it's been good for us. Like we hire recruiters, which are not the same as salespeople, but it's similar. We're about 75 people now. We hired 25 this year, so it's been really successful in a really hard market to hire these people. And a lot of it's because not just myself, but others have taken a very kind of public approach in kind of who we are, what we do, what we believe in, that type of thing. I think that other sales leaders or any kind of leaders need to be not just at the back end of the interview process, at that last step trying to close people, but at the front end of the process, whether it's making yourself public or it's doing what you're doing. And because we have done actual surveys on this, like asking people in sales, like, what do you care about? And it's always comes up, who's the leadership? What do they believe in? What do they like to work with? Like they want to hear from you. And I think gating yourself is a huge mistake. So,
yeah. And I think right now, the number one thing sales leaders can do to be successful in their job is to build the right teams. That has always been one of the most important things you can do, but it is super important right now, and it's probably the hardest. And so I think we talked about this before in a previous call. I heard a piece of advice, I think on one of the Sales Assembly podcasts, where somebody said, if the most important thing I should be doing is recruiting, then my calendar, I'm going to color code every interview I have. And let's say it's red, my calendar should be bleeding red.
Yeah.
If I say it's the most important thing, my calendar should reflect that. And so that's the other thing, is that why, if there's a great applicant, why wouldn't I take the first call?
Yeah.
It's the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also kind of along these same lines, because I think the way this conversation started was talking about egos, hiring processes themselves. I'm curious, how many steps is your typical process? Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3 or 4. And
Okay.
it depends on the role. So the first call is with me. It's 30 minutes, and I'm pretty transparent. I say, I'm going to take 15 minutes to try to get to know you better. Then I want you to take 15 minutes to get to know me and the company better. And at the end of this call, we're going to tell each other if we think there's a possibility of a mutual fit. And this is one thing that I learned. I was a recruiter for a brief moment. And one of my mentors said, you always reject people on the phone if you know you're going to reject them. It's the
Mhm.
humane thing to do. And so I do that at the end of the first call. If it's not a fit, I say it, and I encourage them to do the same. And if it is a fit, the next step is me showing them the product. So it's a 30-minute call where I show them the 10-spot product. I tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I want them to be, we're an early stage startup, and that's not for everyone. And the worst thing I could do is oversell what we are, or sell it differently than what it is in reality, and have somebody quit 2 weeks in. So
Yeah.
I show them everything. And if they're still interested, depending on the role, there may be, I call it a homework assignment, but this is not free consulting. That's a big thing for me, is that I should not be building your go-to-market strategy as a part of the interview
I was going to
process.
say we almost weren't friends there for a second, because that's one I could have ran on too. But yeah, the free work.
No, I think homework assignments should take maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And it's things like, let's say I'm hiring, we do full sales cycle salespeople. I'm hiring an enterprise sales rep, and my concern is they're not going to know how to prospect because they haven't done that in a while. So I say, I want you to take 5 minutes and find somebody that you would want to sell to, and then tell me how you would reach out to them. Don't write the emails, don't give me the call scripts, but I want to know, would you call, would you email, would you video, how many times, what's your process? It takes 5 minutes to prep for that, but it tells me a lot about whether or not they're going to be gritty enough to do that portion of the job. And then the final interview is an hour, and that's where we dig deep into, is this person capable of doing the job, and vice versa. At that point, by the end of that call, I know if I want to hire them. So I save the last 10 minutes for, like, tell me why you would decline my offer if I were to make you an offer.
And how, on average, like how long does it usually take you to do all 4 of those steps?
If the candidate has availability, a week.
Okay. I like it. Yeah.
I mean, what I found, this is not normal. 2 years ago, it would have taken longer, but a week is about how long you have with a candidate before they accept another job.
Okay. So you hit on a few key points here. I think for the way most organizations run their interview process, I think 4 steps is too many, but you do 2 things. One, you're the first call, which I think is key, because I think that's where most companies screw up, because when you're the first call and they're talking to you and you're the top person, you're getting them excited, you're buying leeway to have an extra step or 2. You know what I mean? I think when you don't have your leader being the first call, it doesn't matter who it is. If it's not the person they're going to be reporting to, you can have a great recruiter or a great, maybe you're one of your kind of line managers or something like that. They're not going to have the same level of excitement, period. The interview may be conducted well, but it's just more impactful. I also think that, so I really like that. I like the fact you can get it done in a week potentially, because that's the biggest thing, is like, it just takes too long. The number one reason why I think that companies are struggling to hire, from what we're seeing, is that, like, they're good candidates, especially the lower down they are, the more opportunities they have, these BDR levels, which is what everyone always complains they can't find people at. Yeah, they're going to have an offer in a week if they're good. And if it takes you longer than that to do it, like, you're going to miss out. You almost lost me on the homework, because usually when I see homework, it's like an hour, 2-hour prep project. But if you're asking them to do a 5 or 10 minute thing, I think it's actually solid. So I'm going to recommend that to companies we work with when they have these long, lengthy things, because I think I've been trying to talk them out of doing those. But maybe if I talk them in 5 or 10 minutes, I'll have more success. So,
well, and for me, the other thing is, I know exactly why I'm having them do the homework, which I've been in interview processes where I'm like, what am I showing you by doing this? It took me 5 hours.
Yeah.
What is it showing you other than I can build a great PowerPoint? For that, the example that I gave, I only do that when I worry that somebody is too far removed from prospecting. So I want to make sure they still have the prospecting chops.
Okay.
Or I'm interviewing for sales operations right now. Somebody who is very tactical, like a Salesforce administrator. Maybe I'm worried that they don't have the strategy to help me build a system that will allow us to scale. So maybe the homework there is I give them a business challenge and I say, tell me 3 questions you'd ask if I asked you to work with me on this project. What are some things you'd need to know before you could start making recommendations? And so it is very specific to something that I'm pressure testing as opposed to just a blanket, everybody give me your business pitch. The thing that I hate is when people, especially in sales, when the final step is come demo our product to us.
All right. So another thing I want to dig into here is one thing we hear most frequently on our end. Like it seems like BDRs. I think I mentioned a second ago. That's one of the hardest things to hire for, and there's a few reasons for that. One of which is it's a level that people don't want to be in very long. If you're a BDR, you want to be there for 1 year, 2 years tops, and you're looking to get out. So then there's companies that want to hire BDRs with experience.
I was
So
trying to say the experience thing drives me crazy.
yeah, but then there's I don't know if you see this, but like, because obviously we see this, there's also companies that want to hire BDRs with experience and specifically SaaS experience. So like some other kind of sales, like is completely inapplicable to our business and you couldn't possibly figure it out, right? What's
Which,
your hot take?
I mean, my hot take is that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard for 2 reasons. First, if you're an experienced BDR, you're not good at your job. Or there's something going on because to your point, most companies, especially SaaS companies, the timeline to promote a BDR is between 9 and 18 months. And so if you're looking for somebody with a year of BDR experience, a good BDR would never jump ship because they're on the verge of a promotion.
Yeah.
And so I would ask, why are you interviewing for a job if you have experience? The second thing is, it's not rocket science. The thing that makes a good BDR is not skill, it's will.
Mm-hmm.
And you should be screening for that and exclusively that because you can train the rest. And so rather have somebody who's fearless, who's aggressive, who has an internal locus of control, who has a pride in what they do and responsibility towards just being accountable and somebody who wants to win. I would rather have that person than somebody with 5 years of BDR experience.
Yeah. I think on top of this too is the experience they look for. There's a lack of diversity, right? There's a lack of people being, when I say that, I mean on a couple levels, but people being open to backgrounds. There's that mentality. We want people from Big Ten schools who are athletes or in fraternities and sororities, and we want type A personalities. But I think there's a lot wrong with that in general, but there's also wrong with the fact this idea that like the best salespeople are the people who are just like ultra competitive, in your face, type A. That's something we see too, is that everyone wants the exact same profile. Yeah, a lot of these companies do like tout like we are looking for a diverse slate of candidates, except for when it comes to things like the actual experience or where they come from. So
I completely agree. And I think people who did sports in college can be great BDRs, but so can theater majors. 2 of the best sales professionals I have ever worked with who came up as BDRs started their career in Nordstrom's as salespeople, to the point where I now take business cards every time I go to Nordstrom's. And if there's a great salesperson, I hand it over and I say, if you ever want to get out of retail, give me a call because I'd love to hire you.
yeah.
It's too narrow a view on what grit looks like. I mean, honestly, think of somebody who went to community college and like fought their way to get a degree, or didn't go to college, or there's just so many other profiles of people who can demonstrate a commitment to succeeding and a grit to get there, that go beyond Big Ten athletes. And to your point about like ultra competitive personalities, one of my best sales reps right now, he is not really motivated by winning as an individual. He's really motivated by winning as a team. And that doesn't mean he doesn't work hard. He's my top dialer. He has the most meetings. He has the most opportunities. but what gets him out of bed is like the team winning. And so
Yeah.
I just wouldn't pigeonhole yourself, especially at the BDR level.
Yeah. I just think too, it's like, it's as simple as, and this is maybe one of the overused catchwords of last year, but I mean, in a serious way. I still think that one of the most important aspects of being good at sales, it's more listening, it's more empathy than it is about like being a hard closer. And I think that, not to make my own stereotype about that classic athlete fraternity Big Ten, you don't think of that persona as someone who's a great listener, very empathetic, very touchy feely with people and trying to understand their needs and being able to put it. But I think that's really what it takes to really connect with people, is kind of being more focused on the listening aspect, which, is important, but it's not something I loved your examples of retail, because I actually think that's we've seen kind of success there too, in finding people who would make that kind of transition, because that is an environment where, you're going to deal with a lot of bullshit on a daily basis. And if you can make it there, like, I think you've proven more success than, I guess it's more applicable to kind of transferring something like a more of a SaaS place. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I think so for BDRs or full sales cycle reps, one of the most undervalued traits is the ability to bounce back from rejection. Think of jobs where people are rejected over and over and over again, and they're fine and they keep going. The hardest part about sales is not hard because it's mentally difficult or intellectually challenging. It's emotionally challenging. It is emotionally challenging to pick up the phone, call someone you don't know who's trying to get off the phone with you, and convince them to stay on the phone and book a meeting. That's emotionally challenging, and you need somebody with like emotional grit. So retail is great. On the fly, what are some other great work professions where you get rejected all the time? I mean, being fat in high school, I got rejected all the time.
All right, I got one more area that I wanted to cover, and I don't know what to do with that. So the stigma of sales, right? Do you think that there was a article, I'm pretty sure, did we talk about this one? I know it came up in one of the sales assembly calls. Is Gen Z just not into sales because it's seen as, cold calling, dialing for dollar? It's not a high EQ profession or a very high intelligence profession. Do you think that's real? Do you think that's any different than, do you think it's going out of style and that's why people are having a hard time getting people? Or do you think that's just another kind of generational? I feel like that you could say the same, 20 years ago, they would have said the same thing about the millennials, but.
Well, I think there's been a lot of press recently to try to rebrand sales. And to the point where sometimes I'm like, actually, no, sales is what it's saying it's not. It is hard. There are high highs, low lows. It is high paced. It is, you wear your number on your back. And so it is, the risks are bigger, the rewards are bigger. I don't think Gen Z doesn't want to sell. I think what's happened in the past couple of years is we have broken the mold that we all were being forced into. And what I really respect about Gen Z and the younger generations is that I call my daughter a honey badger because she doesn't give a fuck. And that is Gen Z, that they wear their hair how they want to, and they get tattoos, and I don't know, they dress the way they want to dress, and sexuality is a spectrum, and they don't give a fuck. They are who they are. And that has not been something that is okay in a sales culture. And so I think somebody that's really true and authentic to themselves walks into most sales floors and says, no way, I don't want to be a part of it. And I get why. I was lucky that I had pockets of people that I felt like I could be myself with. But the first 15 years of my career, it was all about hiding who I was to be successful. And I think the burden is on the sales leader not to sell a dream and then deliver a nightmare. Say that we really want a diverse culture, but you walk in and it's all white males under the age of 30 on the sales floor. It's our job to actively seek out diverse skill sets, diverse populations, somebody who's empathetic, somebody who's charming, somebody who's a good listener, all of those people can be good at sales. It's just sometimes hard to put all those people in a room together and have them get along. And we need to lead by example. We need to hire salespeople who are over 35. That's another big pet peeve of mine, is that diversity is skin color, it is gender, but it's also age. And we need to create cultures that are comfortable for everyone. And that means, for me, it's being my authentic self in all interview phases. And if somebody opts out because they don't like that I swear like a sailor, or I am so dorky, it is painful, or that I get distracted, or that I don't hide when I've lost my train of thought, and that I cry when I'm proud of people, and like all of that, that's who I am. And I will obviously adjust to my team where I can, but I show that because it's going to attract a diverse population of people that are thinking, yeah, I could work for somebody like that. The jokes I can't stand, but
I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of a pretty perfect place to, I guess, put an end to this podcast, because I have no response. That was perfect, as James Carville said in Old School. I hope that everyone out there got a lot of value from this conversation. Is there anything else you want to throw in at the end? I guess I should give you one last case of anything we forgot that we need to get out on this topic.
I'll just do a pitch for sales in general, and is that if you like money, if you like working with people, if you like connecting with people, and if you have a drive to succeed, sales can be an amazing career. And if you're walking into places and thinking it's not, find a new home. Don't find a new department. Sales has been really good to me. It has bought this house and this life. And I think more people who are not the mold should consider it. So that's my pitch.
Awesome. That's great. So I hope you had a fun time with this one, because I'd like to do another one again. We talk about employee engagement and your synchronized swimming career, which I think people really want to hear about. Thanks again for tuning into the Talent Insights podcast. If you want to hear what we have to say, you can check out the Talent Insights site, talentinsights.hirewell.com, where you can subscribe to our YouTube, as well as the podcast on Apple, Google, Amazon, and Spotify. Debra, thanks again for joining us.
Thank
Everyone
you.
out there, we will see you soon.